This is not just a show. This is a shift. A reset of how men think, how men heal, and how men lead. Before behavior, there is belief. Before legacy, there is mindset. And before change reaches generations, it must first reach the mind. This is bridging generations. We were raised on survival, not reflection. Taught strength, but not emotional protection. Passed down rules, never passed down tools. So we repeated cycles, thinking pain was the fuel. Different decades, same mental wars. Men grinding hard, but still unsure. We inherited limits, disguised as truth, and called them manhood, handed down to the youth. But growth don't start with doing more. It starts with thinking different than before. What if failure was feedback, not shame? What if growth was learned, not fate or name? We don't stay fixed in who we've been. We expand the mind and life begins. Belief is the seed, mindset the soil. Growth is the reward of intentional toil. This is bridging generations, voices of men, where the mind gets renewed and healing begins. We don't pass down fear, we pass down plans. Blueprints for growth, hand to hand. From presence to purpose, from pain to design. We build better futures with a growth mindset. They told us that's just how men are, but we questioned the ceiling, raised the bar. We learned growth is a discipline, not a phase. A daily decision in how we're raised. Old men teaching lessons from scars. They survive, young men bringing vision, asking why different perspectives, same destination. Healing the man heals the generation. The growth mindset blueprint gave language to pain. Turned I can into I can learn again. No longer stuck in past definitions. We design it with intention. Growth is intentional. Mindset is foundational. Healing is learned. Legacy is built. Presence over pride, process over ego, blueprints, not excuses. This is how men grow. This is bridging generations, no fixed identity. We evolve, adapt, grow intentionally. We don't repeat cycles, we redesign systems. From the mind to the home, to the way that we lead them. The same motivation, it's transformation. Voices aligned through growth across generations. Growth is not accidental. Mindset is the real inheritance. And when men grow, families heal, communities rise, generations change.
All right, welcome to Bridging Generations, Voices of Men in a Changing World. I am Dr. Laxley. I'm your host.
Welcome. Look, it's good to be back. Dr. Juan Marcel here on this podcast, this movement, I would say, Bridging Generations. I get to co-host with the greatest. What do they say? The greatest of all time, the GOAT, Dr. Professor Laxley Stephenson.
Man, it's so good to have you back on, man. It's been a minute.
Yes, it has. I knew it'd be a minute when I was logging in and I had to remember passwords and all this stuff. I was like, wow, it's been some time.
Yeah, but it feels good, I tell you. But tonight we're gonna have a conversation, right? And it's not about theory. Tonight it's about transfer, how we move from where we are and pass on information to the next generation, right?
Yes.
One, we are living in a time where information is everywhere, but mentorship is rare. What do you think about that?
I agree. I think that we are definitely in a time where there's a definite significant absence of a lot of things. Prolific and prominent voices, but a strong presence, a social presence, I should say. And because of that, I think with the lack of mentoring, something else is guiding and coaching and advising us,
Yeah.
young adults, everybody.
And we're going to talk about that tonight. Talking about that, we just lost a big one, Jesse, the Reverend Jesse.
Yes,
We just
yes,
the Reverend Jesse.
yes.
Yes.
And it's interesting. We're in this month, this Black History Month, and we lose such a I would say an activist, someone who fought. I mean, and here's the thing, we're standing on his shoulders, and he was standing on the shoulders from giants himself.
Yeah.
And just small segue, a lot of the people that went before him, his predecessors, were great mentors of his. So he kept that legacy going based on what he was able to model by the men and women that he watched and followed.
So we have a responsibility. We have a responsibility. You know what, Dr. Juan? When young men or boys grow up without guidance,
Hmm.
it's not a case that they stop growing. It's that they grow in the wrong direction.
Yes.
So the question is not whether men are being influenced. The question is by whom. And that's what it's all about, by whom.
Yeah.
You know, the only issue, I believe, is whether men of discipline will step in or step aside. And we're here to tell whoever is watching and listening to us tonight that they need to step in
Yes.
and play their role, right? You are a mentor. I am a mentor. And we know that mentoring is not a hobby.
Nah.
It is not something we do when it's convenient. It is our responsibility. So tonight, we're not asking what is wrong with this generation. We're asking, where are the men building it?
Yeah.
That's what we're asking, right? So I think that's a good way to segment into our conversation tonight. There is a crisis of masculine identity.
Hmm.
Who is teaching our our young men how to be men? And is that teaching producing strength or confusion?
That's a good question. I was doing some reading, just thinking about tonight, and actually conversations I've been having recently. And Doc, I found this that recent research shows that there's a significant shortage of male mentors for boys and young men, particularly boys of color. Even according to mentoring.org, 1 in 3 people grow up without a mentor.
Hmm.
And this is also what the research says, that boys are less likely than girls to report having emotionally engaged adult male mentors. So
Hmm.
when we talk about who's mentoring and who's guiding, there's a significant number of young men who report never even having a mentor, to coach them, to advise them, to guide them there. And so they're less likely to just get that experience. So you ask who's mentoring. I mean, they have so many options because there is a shortage based on research.
And I look back at my early life. I didn't have a mentor,
Mm.
someone mentoring me. I didn't. Growing up in Jamaica, I didn't have one. You growing up here in the United States, it might have been a little bit different for you.
Yes, I was fortunate to have, um by the grace of God, men who came along, and just who were watching me from a distance. So it wasn't like something I was running after, and actively pursuing, asking someone to. I didn't even know that language. I didn't even know what a mentor was, but there were men who came along. My earliest memory is being the age of 14,
Mm,
in high school. I believe I was a sophomore in high school. And I had someone come along, just pull me to the side. Hey, I see some potential in you. But I also see some things that may become obstacles,
mm.
and so he just put in the time and made the commitment to just show me, life.
Looking back, if I was to identify someone who I can say was a mentor for me, I would have to look to when I left the military.
Mm.
Yeah. And then I found someone, Dr. Delores Ambrose, and you know her,
Mm-hmm.
powerful lady. And that was way, way, way into my life, right? So it took that long. And I can only wonder what it would have been like if I had mentors in my life early. And that's why it's so important for us to have this conversation tonight. You know,
Yeah.
your identity, it's not something that is built or formed in isolation. It's something that is absorbed based on your environment, based on your
Yeah.
environment. And what happens if fathers are absent, if mentors are silent, if disciplined men withdraw? What you have is culture is going to show up and take charge. Music, as good as music is going to give instruction.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right? And
Yes.
algorithms are taking over. So, yeah, you know what? We have a generation here of young men's mistaken visibility for value. That if you are visible, if you're popular, that's value. And that's a problem, isn't it?
Yes. Yes. And I think part of it too, is we lose when we don't have that consistency. And we don't have that relational piece to mentorship. I think we lose the value of connection.
Yeah.
I think we lose the understanding that comes, or even I'll say this, even the impact that comes with walking with someone so closely in relationship.
hmm there's a level of confusion out there. And it's easy to say that some of these young folks are not intelligent, they're not educated, they're not aware. But I think it's a lack of example in many cases that is missing.
Hmm.
Lack of example. So we need to do our part. We need to do something about it. Just like all those who came before us and they understood that it was a responsibility. It's
Yeah.
not something you do out of convenience, but it's a responsibility. So I want you to tell men, because men must take on the responsibility for mentoring other men. And I want you to tell them straight up that talk to them.
To Doc's point, that piece, I would say a big, a very important component of mentorship is modeling. um, and especially when you have young men, young boys, young men who are lost, who have, like Doc stated, there's this identity crisis, and they're fighting every day to learn, to discover, to know who they are, what their purpose is, where they're going, if they matter. All of these internal questions, if they don't have anyone before them to model, they get lost and can stay lost. So I think mentorship is really important. And he said it's not a hobby, it's a responsibility. There is a quote that I absolutely love. I do my best to live by, and everything that I do, by Dr. Maya Angelou. I always quote this. She said, when you give, when you learn, teach. And when I first read that, the first year I started in education, I read it, and it became my conviction that whatever I get, I acquire, I learn. It's my responsibility to pass it on, especially being a product of mentorship. How be it for me, or who am I to think that I'm supposed to harbor it or hoard it,
Mm,
and not steward it properly and pass it on?
pass it on. And it's to that old saying, are you going to function like a lake or a river?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah,
So it's a choice, it's a
it is.
responsibility, and it's something that we must start to take more seriously. At what point does a man move from needing mentorship to becoming mentors, right?
Yeah.
Because all of us, no matter what age, no matter where you are in your life, we can use a mentor or two.
It's interesting you say that. I go back to the modeling piece. I knew I didn't know everything when I became a mentor and I was younger. But I knew some steps and some key points to practice based on what I saw modeled. And I think, and I'm appreciative for those who took the responsibility to say, no, I can see where you're misguided. I can see where detached or disconnected. And it matters to me that you come into your purpose. It matters to me that you understand what a good name is, and good credit. You just all of these things. And someone said, no, let's sit down, let's talk. And one thing I learned from that, we talk about men taking on the responsibility. I learned that we learn more by example than we do by words. And so these men and women made the commitment to show me their life as well as their words, And I think it's major.
Major. And as we talk about responsibility, it's not an age thing. It does not necessarily begin with age. It begins with awareness. The moment that you realize someone is watching how you respond, mentorship has already started.
Yes.
Right? You're a mentor. You recently finished was it a 1 year stint as a official mentor at
Yes.
Global Humanity Network?
Yes.
And how was that experience for you?
That year was it was a great and rewarding experience, but with its challenges, because mentorship it's not cookie cutter, it's not perfect, it's not pretty. But I feel like it's definitely worth the commitment. And I learned a lot, not just about my mentee, but about myself. And I think that was most just as important. So it was a great experience.
One thing I want to say about mentoring, that it is not optional for capable men. I think that mentoring is the cost of experience. Yeah, and probably too many successful men accumulate wealth but fail to reproduce wisdom.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
And that's a concern, right? So while you'll find that achievement is a very personal thing in most cases, legacy is generational, and legacy is built through mentoring, what you do with others and how you help others grow, and taking on that responsibility of as a man doing your work and bringing your brother along, your young brother along.
Yes.
You know,
You said something right there, Doc. You talked about achievement, and legacy. I honestly and just go along. I go along with this. I think that, and I believe that achievement builds status, but legacy builds men. And I think starting something and then having something to pass on is what builds strong men. The saying, was it Frederick Douglass? You have all of these. It's easier to build strong men, build strong children, than to repair broken men. And I think having a legacy, that legacy does that for us.
certainly. And Dr. Juan, in my own personal journey, I I realized then, but I'm even becoming more aware now, that looking at my struggles, what I've gone through, and having survived it, I know that I owe someone something. I am to give back something. And I'm appealing to men out there that if you have done a reasonably well in life and you've gone through certain trials and tribulations, and you have a lot to share.
Yes.
Don't sit on that knowledge. Don't sit on what you learn from those experiences. That's what mentoring is about. It's passing it on, passing it on. So being overly silenced is not a good thing. And what that does is it creates confusion in younger men more than anything else when you're too silent with the knowledge that you have gained.
So again, I'm just this. For those that don't know, I love data. I love research, and just preparing for tonight. I was reading just a couple of just studies, and there was a longitudinal study done, and what they found was through mentoring.org. They found that young adults who had mentors, right, and these are some numbers because we're talking about legacy and passing it on and not staying silent. Young adults who had mentors are 55% more likely to enroll in college. They're 78% more likely to volunteer
Mm.
and more likely to become mentors themselves. So mentorship, and you touched on this, Doc. So mentorship reproduces itself if it's modeled properly. I think if it's done properly and consistently, it definitely reproduces.
Yeah, and because this is a show for men about men, we are talking about men and mentoring there, but it applies across the board,
Yeah.
all genders, right?
Yeah.
So, yes, this is Bridging Generation Voices of Men, and we're talking about men because we know that our men are at risk.
Yeah.
They are at risk. So, this is the challenge, one of the challenge, right? When you're talking about mentoring and be that example. It is difficult to guide someone effectively if you have not guided yourself,
I agree.
if you're
Yes.
not where you belong, right? So, which brings us to a conversation men often avoid: the internal work, what
Yeah.
we need to do
Yeah.
on the inside. What we need to, so, can a man guide another man if he has not mastered himself?
I don't believe so. I don't believe so. I'll say this. I think I so John Maxwell says this that you can't lead somewhere you've never been yourself, right? So I can't take you to a place if I've never traveled to that place. I can't take you along a journey if I haven't traveled that journey. And so there are areas personally that I find myself very strong at mentoring and coaching young men and others because these areas I've been to or have mastered. And then there are areas that I'm working out myself. And so, and it's not that I shy away from mentoring someone in that area, but I just walk with them, right? Until I know that I'm strong enough or wise enough or experienced enough, right? To lead someone else down that road, but I think you said earlier, it's a decision, it's a choice. And I think maturity and humility looks like that, like saying, I'm still trying to figure that out myself.
Mhm.
But what I can share with you is this, and I think that's sometimes a stigma and just a deterrent for men when it comes to mentoring is like, I don't know what I'm going to tell them. I don't know what to do. And I've learned that people often don't do because they don't know. And sometimes men get stuck at the place of just knowing just trying to figure out where to start.
Yeah, trying to figure out where to start, and that's even more complicated if that man is dealing with unhealed
Hmm.
trauma.
Hmm.
That thing
Yes.
does not disappear.
Yes.
It's going to leak out, right? It's going
Yes.
to leak out into your leadership,
Yes.
into your fatherhood, into how you're mentoring relationships. And I was on my other platform, Life Changing Conversations, Inspire Actions. I had Dr. Sharon the Heart Lady, right?
Hmm.
And we're talking about men holding on to their pain, right?
Yeah.
So, what many men, it's almost like we're trained to suppress emotion and not process it,
Yes. Yes.
right?
Yes.
And we believe that is strength, but it's not. All we're doing is delaying the inevitable, right?
Yes. Wow.
So
Yeah.
the sooner we as men understand that emotional intelligence
Yeah.
is not weakness, it is a form of regulated power,
Yeah.
you know? So, a mentor who cannot be corrected, one, cannot build healthy men. We must be open for correction. And if we're not open to look at our situations, our lives emotionally, then how
Yeah.
can you enter another one?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's you made a great point about emotional intelligence and being able to receive correction. So I was reading today, and it's interesting because I don't think I've ever heard this term. And if you have, let me know, Doc. But I was just looking at like the correlation between relational correction and just relational connection and manhood and masculinity. And I found that there was some research that said that because there's a significant shortage in mentorship, you have a lot of strong presence from social media. So a lot of primary masculinity is being instructed through social media. And so I read this. It said online personalities are shaping boys' views on dominance, power, wealth, and emotional suppression. Is what you just said.
Mhm.
So it said without relational correction, right? Boys adopt performance-based masculinity or performative masculinity. And I was like, performative masculinity, I've never heard that. But without this relational correction, they develop this performance-based masculinity. And it says this: it says that performative masculinity is a concept that masculinity is not an innate trait, but rather a set of behaviors, actions, and roles that men must constantly adopt, display, and prove to be accepted as real men by society.
Mhm.
Society. So it's almost like that masculinity becomes their identity when when they don't have that one-on-one, that
Mhm.
relationship. That they start developing behaviors that to them seem like evidence that I'm masculine.
Mhm. Mhm.
I do these behaviors, I act this way because this is what makes me a man. These behaviors.
This is what is required to become a man.
Yes.
And there's no sound foundation there
Yes.
that is going to add value. Just that I am a man, because it's just like if I don't smoke, I'm not a man. If
Right.
I don't drink alcohol, I'm not a man, right?
Yeah.
I'm growing up, and as soon as I can smoke, man, I'm entering into my manhood, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, same idea, same idea. You know, I there's another thing too that we need to look at and talk about is pride.
Yes. Yes.
And I believe that pride is a thief. It steals potential
Hmm.
because of pride, right? And I say that pride has dismantled more potential than failure ever has. Because one thing about failure and not reaching your goals, you'll learn from that. You learn
Yes.
lessons from your
Yes.
failures, from your attempts. When you do things and they don't work out, you learn so much. You experience, you grow, and you develop, right? Because
Yes.
failure is feedback. Failure is feedback. We know that. But pride, what is pride doing for you?
That's good. And I think pride, I would go as far to say personally, my thoughts about pride is that it's it can be paralyzing,
Mm,
debilitating. Like you get stuck in this place where you refuse to move, or you're afraid to move or act or change. And pride, it shows up for so many different reasons that I think it inhibits um change,
mhm,
growth.
mhm,
And we're talking about mentorship, connection,
mhm.
you know, because
Gets
I'll say this. So what happens when, and I've been here, when your mentee is growing, They're maturing, be it not just age, but just, emotionally, mentally, in other ways. And they start what used to work, or the lessons that used to work for them, now that they've matured, and they're asking more, they're needing more, and it challenges you to kind of leave the place where you were once accustomed to. And then pride might say to you, like, you need to slow down. I know more than you. You know what I mean? I'm smarter than you. I know what I'm doing. But if you're not humble enough to see their evolution, right,
Mhm.
and move accordingly, you might stifle that, either their relationship or possibly their growth. I think pride does that as well.
Mhm. And pride gets in the way of accountability.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
And accountability is a must.
Yes.
We
Yes.
must be accountable to ourselves, to our families, to our friends, to our community. And yeah, so pride will destabilize accountability. And if we want strong men, and I was having a conversation today with a friend about building strong men for our culture, for our society. We must build strong men. And in order to build strong men, we must normalize accountability among men. And I'll tell you this, growing up, I grew up without a man around me, without a father, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So, and why is that so? Again, it's about accountability. Because if you have children, you need to be there.
Yeah.
Part of your responsibility. That's part of the accountability piece,
Yeah.
right? Hmm. Now, I didn't. What I learned from that, my lesson from that is to make sure that I didn't repeat that.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I had to cut that off, right? I
Yeah.
had to cut it off. 'Cause we don't want that to become generational. That's the last thing.
Yes. I love that you talk you, and you've talked about generations. Of course, this is bridging generations, and it makes sense. One thing I've learned, and was learning, is that we learn more from someone's actions than their words, right? And so, what I saw before me, I didn't want to become, but I didn't have anything to reference to become, only what I saw before me. And so when you talk about emotional intelligence and emotional awareness, it's almost like my settings and my environment, almost like created that awareness in me because of the questions that I had. And so being emotionally aware, um, allowed me to ask those questions. How do I become an example that I would want someone to follow?
Hmm. Hmm.
And then one day when I have children, this is when I was younger, that I would be a good example to them, that they would want to model after me.
Hmm.
So I completely agree about the generational piece, because it doesn't just stop here. Like, here's the thing, like, just watching you for these past so many years, there are things about that I admire and honor and respect, about how your mind works, how your outlook on life and business and just all of these things, that it causes, um it stretches me. We talk about stretch zone, right? it
Hmm.
it causes me to get uncomfortable sometimes, because I'm like, I got to take this a little further. Like, it's stretching my view, and but I love that, though, because I trust you, right? And I trust the spirit in you. So then I know that following the practices that you exhibit, right, and exemplify, is a safe place. And I think that's good leadership as well as good mentorship, where you don't have to say, Juan, come follow me. You don't have to say that when it's done right. Because the person will say, can I follow you?
Hmm.
Can I sit at your feet? Can I learn of you? How did you get to? Can you show me that? Can we talk? They'll come to you asking, what must I do?
I appreciate you saying that one. I've known you forever. seems. I've known you for a long time, and I too have really admired how you go about doing your business, how you're built, and how you've built through struggles, trials, and tribulations, and you've never let it stop you. And you continue to grow, and you continue to grow, and you're nowhere close to your ceiling.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you are the perfect mentor for many. Any and again, you said it right. You said something that is so powerful that you see me doing things, and it's all about examples, right? How I'm living, how I'm pursuing life. And sometimes that's all you need, just to
Yeah.
observe the person,
Yes.
watch the person, and
Yes.
tap into what they're doing as well.
Yes.
Yeah, you don't need much instructions, do you?
No.
You don't need much instruction. So, and I think once a man stabilizes himself,
Hmm.
the question is becomes much larger. The question is, are we simply giving advice, or are we building something that will outlive us? And I think you just touched on that. I'm not here to give advice. I'm here to build a system that will outlast us, outlast me for sure, so others can tap into it and it can make a difference. And I'm glad you brought up the stretch zone. By the way, that was good.
Yeah. It's literally been resonating and resounding, since I heard it. I was like, wow. Yeah.
The
You know.
stretch zone. That's
Yeah.
where growth. That's where growth happens, right? And yeah, and not, don't we don't want to go there with it, but that was from the growth mindset workshop that you attended, and we talk about the stretch zone. And if you go too far over there, then you're going to the panic place, right?
Yes.
So you
Yes.
want to, yeah, and you don't want to stay in the comfort place
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
And that's life. That's about building men, and what that program is all about. It's a mentoring program as well. It's about building men and women,
Yeah.
people. But again, we're talking about men here.
Yes.
So the question is, are we simply giving advice, or are we building something that will outlive us? And are we giving men information, or are we modeling transformation? And that's what you just talk about.
Yes.
That's what you
Yes.
just talk about.
Yeah. I read that proper mentorship is effective, especially in young men and men of color. I read this today, when it
Mm,
is transformational and relational and not transactional.
yeah,
Right?
exactly.
You're not just doing it because I'm mentoring you because I'm getting something for myself. But when you actually make the connection and are providing substance and things that will transform my thinking, which is going to transform my life, then that's effective mentorship. And I think we do well or do better and become stronger men when these exchanges are transformational.
Yes, indeed. And I'm going to say a few things now, and I want you to listen. And anyone out there, pay attention to this, because I'm going to tell you, advice is very inexpensive.
Mm,
Inexpensive. You know what is costly? That's access.
mm.
Yeah. So another thing I'm going to say is that our young men do not need more motivation or motivational quotes. What they need is proximity to disciplined men, and that's where the access is all about, right?
Yeah.
They need to be around men who
Yeah.
are consistent in whatever they're doing. They need to be around men who deal with restraint. They can deal, they don't just rush into things. They can manage themselves, hold themselves back. And they need to be around men who observe humility in real time
Yes.
as well, right? You know,
I completely agree.
yeah,
I completely agree. I don't think we understand like the significance, or I'll say this, the correlation between direct connection or connectivity and success, right? And of course, success can be defined by that person, but whatever they're trying to be successful at, if whether it's growth, personal development, whatever it is, there's a strong tie to direct connection with a mentor, with someone, modeling. I'll say that's the word we've been using.
Mhm.
So having modeling or a model over, like you said, motivation or a message,
Mhm.
there's a significant growth rate, right, in that connection.
That's what the data is saying, right?
Yeah, that's what that is. So this speaks to the point about proximity, like being close, you
Mhm.
know, being in the company of a mentor,
Mhm.
actually is beneficial for the
Mhm.
mentee significantly.
You know, and and back to our talk about example, right? Because if we're only talking, if they only hear us speak, but
Mhm.
never see us live it, are we mentoring or are we just performing, right?
Yeah.
And we're talking about transformation here, right? And that, as opposed to being transactional, performance does not produce transformation. It's through our actions, it's through our examples,
Yeah.
yeah, not just performing, right? So one, we during the growth mindset workshop, we talk about the importance of systems, that we must build systems. We must have consistent gatherings.
Yeah.
And I think I gave us an example that when my years ago with my nephews, we would every Friday, every Saturday, we would have our gathering, we'd have a meeting, and we would talk shop, business. These were young men, right? So started mentoring them from very early, and we would assign a book. We'd assign a book, and I'm talking about consistent gathering now and
Mhm.
structured accountability here. And so we would assign a book. The book was called the E-Myth Revisited, and they would have to read a chapter and report on the chapter every. I think it was either Saturday or Sunday. They had a report on it, and it was about six of them in the group. And then at some point, they would come down to Atlanta to visit me so we could have our own retreat. And I'm talking 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, 20 years ago. And I think we need to do more of that. If you are that person in your family and you have nieces and nephews and whatever, you need to have these consistent gatherings. And I call it structured accountability or intentional presence in their lives.
Intentional presence. Yeah.
Yeah, in their lives, And I'll say this again, and I said earlier, we don't need more motivational quotes because that's random stuff. Random inspiration cannot replace structural development. That's what we need.
Yeah.
More structural development with our young men. And if we're to build young men who are going to be capable of carrying on the work, carrying on the legacy, because you can only do so much. We live in a relay.
Yeah.
It is a relay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a relay. Because we're only here for however long, right? We don't own that. What we own is while we're here to do the work we're here to do.
Right. We're here. Yes.
We're others to carry it on. And that's the ultimate.
Yes. That's good. That's
That's the
good.
ultimate. And what happened if we fail to do this? What happened if we fail to do this? There is a cost, a price to pay. And we're not talking about theory here, it is generational.
Generational cost. Yes. Yes.
And so let's talk about the cost of doing nothing. If men do not mentor men, what happens to families, communities, and nations?
You know, it shows there are significant cost to doing nothing. We have higher dropout rates, increased incarceration risk, increased behavioral problems, and lower lifetime earnings. So we're talking about health and wellness, mental health, livelihood. Those things are impacted
Mm.
when there's little to no mentorship or even or fathering. But we're talking specifically about mentorship. So
Mhm.
these are direct correlations to the lack of male mentorship and an increase, like I said, in incarceration risk. Uh, I found this too, Doc, today. It said, according to mentoring.org, they report that youth without mentors are significantly more likely to disengage from school and
Mm.
employment.
You know, if you are able and capable, and I dare say everyone is, every male out there is capable of becoming a mentor.
Yeah,
Do something about it. Become accountable. Be responsible for your action. It is a responsibility. It's not a option to become a mentor. It's not an option. In
yeah.
fact, I'm going to pop something on the screen. We at Global Humanity Network, we launched what we call the Beyond the Backpack. And the idea is to Beyond the Backpack gets a child to school, support keeps them there, right? And it is a structured long term student development initiative by Global Humanity Network, Inc., providing long term accountable support to give bright, high potential students across. We're starting out in Jamaica, the tools they need to succeed. We're launching this program up August 2026, and we're launching it in 3 parishes in Jamaica: Westmoreland, Trelawney, and St. Elizabeth. And the reason being is those are the parishes that really suffered, that got hit real hard from the recent hurricane,
Hurricane.
Melissa. So that is our thing to do, because we understand that it's okay to do charitable stuff, and we did that, but we also want to build bridges and to build capacity and build leaders, because we need leaders. So how can you support this initiative? You can become a student investment partner. That's 2,000 US dollars. Or you can become an education champion. That's 4,000. Or you can become a community impact partner, 8,000. Or a national sustainability partner, 10,000. Those they seem like high numbers. But guess what? People are jumping on board. You know why? Because it's important. Because we are building, I don't want to say we're building a nation, but we're building people.
Yeah.
Our people. We're building our people. You know, now this program, we we launched it in Jamaica. We're going to launch it all August 2026. However, we're going to take it outside of Jamaica as well, into other Caribbean islands. Into other Caribbean islands. So I think that's a big deal, and with that program, there is a mentoring component added. So we figured that for 2,000 US dollars, we can, for 1 year, go beyond the backpack.
Hmm.
So it's just not what is in the backpack. If they need tutoring, transportation, whatever they need to get to school. If sometimes these kids don't have lunch, they can't get to school, you know? And you know how important nutrition is when
Yeah.
you're trying to learn, when you're in a learning environment.
Yeah.
So for $2,000 for 1 year, it's a 3 year program. So the kids will be in the program for 3 years. It's not a one off thing. So we must have continuity. So that's what this program is about, and we're going to kick it off in August. We did the initial phase of the program in Jamaica, where we gave 135 students textbooks, not just one textbook, but enough to cover them in school. So if a student needed 5 books, that's what they got. So we did 135 students at the primary school level. So we talk about mentoring, and we talk about building community and building young men. What happens when men withdraw from the process? What happens when men withdraw from the process?
Without, and we're talking about not just global impact, right?
Mm-hmm.
But just impact, period. When men withdraw, when we go without mentoring, there's you spoke about this earlier. There's confusion. We have boys that are confused.
Mm-hmm.
We have, as they move forward in life, women who inherit emotionally unavailable men.
Mm-hmm.
And communities run the risk of inheriting instability,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because we're building, and we're talking about mentorship that builds young men into mature, strong men, right? And so when there's absent, that doesn't just affect that boy or that man. That affects, like you said, a family. And if it affects the family, then it affects the community,
Mm-hmm.
and then everything around it.
Yeah, and you said it right. Confusion advances when men withdraw. And you said it again that it increases instability.
Yeah.
I also want to add that unmentored boys seek belonging in destructive places. Right? Because the silence of disciplined men empowers reckless ones, right?
Yes.
So if men do not build men, guess what? Systems will.
Yes.
And those systems may not necessarily prioritize character, good character, right? They
Yeah.
may not. Before we go any further, I see our CFO, Dr. Donna, is on. Hi, Dr. Donna. And I see Dr.
Donna.
Reed is on. Hi, Doc. Thanks for joining us. Appreciate you joining. And anyone else who's watching, we ask that you share this broadcast. We're talking about men building men. That's what we're talking about. And another way to put it is what? Mentoring, mentorship, whatever you want to call it.
Yes.
That's what we're talking about tonight. I'm on with Dr. Juan, my co-host, and it's a brand new Bridging Generation Voices of Men. We're kicking off tonight. This is the platform where we'll be talking about things that affect us men, right?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So if men do not build, men systems will, and those systems may not prioritize character well. How about that?
That's really good.
Hmm?
And I want to add to that, because the understanding is, or what we're not saying is that it's not about being a bad man, because it's not always about bad men. It's about passive men.
Mm-hmm.
Men who don't say or do anything. A pastor of mine used to always say this. He said, "You may not can do everything, but you can do something." And I believe that.
Mm-hmm.
Can't do it all, but there is something that we can commit to, or there is one, that we can commit to. You touched on the doc. You said a nephew, a niece, and we're talking young men, so I'm gonna say nephew, your neighbor,
Mm-hmm.
a cousin, whomever, they're deserving of it. And the thing is, oftentimes they may not come to you and say to you, I need guidance.
Yeah.
I need mentorship. Sometimes they don't even know that they do.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why, not being passive is really the step to take. and you seeing something. It's almost what we teach, we teach kids, when they see danger, you see so, or the people around you see something, say something. I kind of want to take that, because this is, I feel like it's a state of emergency.
Mm-hmm.
Where what the president just did, his report, his speech, the other night. We're in a state of emergency, where we are, and we're talking about generations and bridging those gaps.
Mm-hmm.
You talked about, the organization giving, making sure that they have an education. But Doc, like you said, y'all are building bridges. We're
Mm-hmm.
building strong bridges so they go from one state of mind or state of life
Mm-hmm.
on across this bridge
Mm-hmm.
to a different, more mature, stronger state of mind, state of living,
Mm-hmm.
point of view, all of these different things that come with someone just making a commitment to be active.
Yeah. And I want to repeat something I said earlier. That we must build systems.
Mhm.
And what is that? With consistent gatherings,
Yes.
structured accountability, and intentional presence.
Intentional presence. Yes.
But that is big stuff. That is important stuff. And yeah. So we've been talking a lot about accountability tonight, and about normalizing accountability. It needs to be normalized. It needs to be the way to go, the thing,
Mhm.
not the exception. Oh, that person is accountable. No, it needs to be the go-to thing.
Mhm.
We're not surprised when accountability surface, right?
Right.
So here's a question. Here's some questions that we need to ask one another, each other. Who are you building? Who are you sharpening? Who is better because you exist? And every male and woman who are listening to us tonight, I want you to ask that question to your friends, your neighbors, your uncle, your aunt, your cousin, your mother, whatever. Ask them, who are you building? Who are you sharpening? And who is better because you exist here on earth in this life? That's a question that we must all answer. And I tell you why it's important. The next generation will inherit either our discipline or our dysfunction.
Yes.
There's no neutral ground, none at all. They're either going to inherit our discipline, our consistency, our structured approach to life, or our dysfunction. What do we want them to inherit is the question.
Mm.
Should I repeat those questions?
Yes.
For if you're watching this broadcast,
Mhm.
Bridging Generation Voices of Men, ask the person next to you or the person you see next, whether it's tonight, tomorrow. Ask them, who are you building? Who are you sharpening? And who is better because you exist here on earth? And maybe you can make a comment in the caption on this video when you get your answers. It could be tomorrow or the next day. It's okay. Make a comment and tell us what kind of responses you're getting. Because those are the most important questions you can ask right now. You can ask right now. And I'll tell you what, people are doing things, but they're not doing it in an intentional. They're lacking intentional presence. And we talked about that earlier on.
Yeah.
Intentional presence. So they might be doing things and not even aware of what they're doing. And that's where that intentional presence is critical. All right. And we're saying this because the next generation will inherit either our discipline or our dysfunction. There's no neutral ground. All right, Dr. Juan, we're coming down on the hour. So it went by so fast.
It did.
It went by.
When you have great dialogue, it happens.
So tell me what you're thinking.
At this moment, those questions that you posed, What I heard from those questions is decision, choice, and you spoke about that earlier. And the beauty of it, and no pressure to anyone, but the beauty of it is when you think about it and you look at those questions, and you start thinking about how to answer, you realize that you get the opportunity to decide or make a choice about the trajectory or the future of generations coming behind you. To have a significant part or significant role, right? We're not saying that we do everything for everybody, right? But to decide what that significant, and Doc said it, you're being intentional about it. That when you're in the presence or they're in your presence, right? Being intentional about that. It's not just a hey, hi, and bye. You hungry? No, but if you're around me, I'm thinking through, I'm making a decision. I want this to be a lasting impression when they leave my presence, right? That now that I'm watching this and listening to these questions, my mind is like running, right? So I feel like that's the intentionality that's needed, and mentorship. That when they leave, when the mentee leaves, it's like, oh, he said some stuff that really has me thinking now. It develops this hunger inside of them to want to know more, to want to be better, to want to know how to get to better.
Big stuff there, Juan. So let me say this, and then you can come back and close this out. All right. And I want to say that tonight was not about criticism. We're not here criticizing anyone.
No.
It's more of an invitation. And you must understand that mentoring is not about ego, it is about stewardship. And for every man watching us tonight, they must answer this privately. Here's a private question you must answer, or here's a question you must answer privately. Am I consuming wisdom or am I reproducing it? And I'm going to repeat that. For every man watching this broadcast tonight, you must answer this question privately or publicly. It's up to you. Am I consuming wisdom or am I reproducing it? 20 years from now, the quality of our communities will reflect the quality of our mentorship. Strong men are not accidental, they're shaped by other strong men. I believe, Dr. Juan, I believe that if we want stronger families, we must build stronger men. If we want stronger men, we must mentor them. And let us not just talk about responsibility, let us embody it. I am going to turn it over to you to close us out.
Look, we talked a lot, and I appreciate that, Doc. Like, there's some pretty thought-provoking points, and we said a lot. We said a lot. I want to reiterate that this is not about judgment, or condemning. We all have a responsibility. I think that's the word that stood out for tonight, right? And I think that all who are watching, there's even while we were talking, who is that one person that just kept coming to mind? There's that one. And there may be more, but I know there's definitely one. Again, we're not saying that we got to do everything, but there is something that you can do. There is someone. And so I think it's worth looking into when you see that young man, when he comes to mind, when he comes up. I think it's worth just reaching out and saying, hey, how are you doing? I start conversations like this. Tell me a story, right? And I think it's worth listening to help them figure out the journey and the path. So if you heard nothing else tonight, I want to push this, that it's not optional, right? It's a responsibility that we hold, and should be taken lightly. Yeah, think about someone that you can impact, and like Doc said, answer those questions. Who is being changed? And I want to reiterate, and I'll close it with this: whose life is being impacted in a positive way by your example? Because it matters.
What a way to close it. What a way to close it. So we'll be back on next Thursday at
Yes,
7:30.
7:30.
Another episode of Bridging Generations, Voices of Men. We'll be having these conversations on different topics. We'll be having these conversations. We'll have guests on. We'll bring some folks on to talk. But we will have a conversation nevertheless, regardless of who's here with us. And it will be an impactful, important conversation because I think we have a lot to share and we're ready to share. All right. So good night, everyone. And we will see you next week on Bridging Generations, Voices of Men in a Changing World. We're out.
This is not just a show. This is a shift. A reset of how men think, how men heal, and how men lead. Before behavior, there is belief. Before legacy, there is mindset. And before change reaches generations, it must first reach the mind. This is Bridging Generation. Yeah.